I'm fascinated, and the rest of my family is always interested in hearing these stories, and I don't think anybody tires of them. I know that your brother and sisters hear them over and over again,
Yeah.
and mention that, but we don't hear them. None of the rest of us do.
Yeah.
And so we love to. I just wanted to, as an introductory, I met, I'm not, I don't mean to, by this interview session, take you to any specific area of the of your background or history that you don't want to go to. If there's anything that makes you feel uncomfortable at all, then let me know. And I'm interested in you digressing, and you don't just stop with one short answer and move on. But I do have a lot of questions, and I know I won't get to nearly all of them. But I'm I'm interested in anecdotal
Are you on
stories.
now?
We're recording.
Oh, great.
Question.
Okay, we're going to start off at the beginning. That we're actually going to start off at your current lives now. What kind of things do you do these days that you enjoy? Or how do you get enjoyment out of life now?
Okay. Well, right now, I'm enjoying teaching a little class, an art class.
Uh-huh.
And I still enjoy my art, and I enjoy people. And the thing I need most of all is to be with people.
Uh-huh.
Does me more good than anything else.
Do you still make art for sale at shows or
I will, yes.
Mhm.
I'm in the middle of some of that.
okay.
Yeah, I will. Right. I don't have a show. Well, I do. Out of our Museum of Art, I have pictures
Uh-huh.
out there right now, and I need to keep those going. So I got to get the picture that I just did of Venice out
Mhm.
to the Museum of Art.
Oh, okay. But you're involved with your church and your children and grandchildren.
And children, and I'll have Lindsay next week for 2 or 3 days.
Okay. Yeah.
To relieve her other grandparents.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When
Yeah.
Ed and Patty go to Vail, or
Yeah.
are they
When
going
they
by
go to
themselves?
Vail.
Okay.
I'll have her for a while. So
Okay.
that's nice.
And yourself?
Well, I'm pretty busy going to cardiac rehab 3 days a week right
Uh-huh.
now.
Okay.
But I have been very active in the church, and it's important to me. And then when I retired, in an interest to pay back everything I've been lucky enough to get here
Yes.
in Indianapolis, I joined an organization called OAR,
Uh-huh.
Offenders Aid and Restoration.
Okay.
And we get volunteers and train them. And then every time a client goes into the jail, the Marion County Jail is a holding jail. It's not a prison. So people that are arrested go there for overnight. They go there till their case comes up. Sometimes they go for short sentences. And every client, as we call them, that comes in, we hand them a piece of paper and say, if you want to help yourself, we're
Mhm.
willing to help you. If you don't, forget it.
Yeah.
If you do want to help yourself, send this paper. Now, the sheriff is so impressed with our program that he gives us an office right next to the chapel in the jail. And then we have our own employee who has trained the volunteers. Then when the prisoners or clients, as we call them, come in
Uh-huh.
with a piece of paper, say, I'd like some help, then there's an interview,
Yeah.
of course, with an armed guard right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, well, I think you ought to go with John Jones, or I think you ought to go with Dick Todderud, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then the volunteer who says, I'll go with that person, agrees to meet that person once a week, same day, same time, every week, until their term is up, or until they get transferred, until they get released.
Uh-huh.
And once the people, the clients, depend on that, if you don't show up, it shatters them.
Yes.
So then you go down at 1 o'clock every Wednesday and meet John Jones, who's in jail for some reason or other.
Mm-hmm.
Then you work with him. We offer tutoring, we offer counseling, but it's amazing how many of these people can't figure their way out of a wet paper bag.
Mm-hmm.
And we have counseling, then we have tutoring of volunteer teachers.
Mm-hmm.
tutor, and then we have branched out to hire at our expense professional drug and alcohol interventionists who come down and do the work right in the jail under the supervision of armed guards. And we find that that the clients want to get out of the cell blocks so bad, they'll come and take about anything.
Yes.
But then we get a chance with these professional interventionists to expose them to the drug intervention, alcohol intervention. And a surprising amount of it sticks.
Yeah. How are you able to see that? Do you ever follow them after their term leaves and you see them out in the open society? And
Yeah, they report back.
Oh, okay.
And that is one of the very difficult.
I'm just checking to make sure that it all looks okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's one of the most, you hit on one of the most difficult things in this work is to follow up, because once they leave, they just disappear through the cracks.
Yes.
But we've got some tracking systems now with some computers and with the help of the police that allow us to go back and check on John Jones every 3 months, every 6 months. How's he doing? Where is he? What's he doing? And our record is pretty good of people that we help. The sheriff, as I say, is so impressed with this. And the sheriff runs the jail for this whole area. That he gives us anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 a year out of his commissary funds. That's the money he makes by selling candy bars and cigarettes to the clients. And he'll give us that much for our budget. And then we go out and raise money with at other places, companies, big companies, little companies. And when I started, the budget was about $30,000. We had one paid employee. And one time I had to leave because of some health. The budget was up over $200,000.
Wow.
And it's still growing.
Oh, good.
So we've been able
Which is really wonderful.
Yes.
And there's great satisfaction in working with somebody and guiding them and directing. I had one guy that had tried to commit suicide. And they put him in jail, and then they said, maybe this outfit can help you. So the director called me down and said, we think we can handle this one. And I went down, the guy sitting there, and he said, I'm not very smart, and I tried to kill myself, but I didn't do a good job. But I got a friend and neighbor that's got a gun. As soon as I get out of here, then I'll go get the gun and I'll do the job right. Well, see, that was supposed to shock me, and it did shock our director. She said, yeah. And it was supposed to shock me. And I just sat back and said, well, it's your own life, you know. Do what you want to. But there's an opportunity to straighten your life around. Well, we're here to help. Well, long, very short, was 5 years. Worked with that guy, ended up working with 2 of his sons who got in jail.
Yeah.
And
It's a rude awakening
Yeah.
to see these people and realize that.
see, they live a different
like
life
this.
than we do.
Right,
Yes.
Different sense of standing.
and their children, and,
Yeah.
And
You just want to break them out of that cycle.
yeah.
Keep
yeah,
it
but
from
it's not that easy.
self-perpetuating.
You know, it takes a lot to do it.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
but we did. I have gotten reports back. In fact, this guy's daughter wrote us at Christmas not so long ago, said, I just wanted you to know that my dad was. Oh, and the guy lost his job because he was a redneck. And his boss told him. A new boss came in, told him, I don't like rednecks, and I'll get you out of here. And got him out of there and blackballed him.
Well,
Couldn't find a job anywhere. And every place he'd go, and they'd check his reference, they said, no, we're not interested in you. So I put my blue suit and white shirt on and went up to see the president of the company. Told him that you were getting in legal trouble by allowing this to happen. He said, oh no, that couldn't happen in my place. Short of about 3 days later, he called and said, for lunch, let's go have lunch. He said that was going on, and I guarantee you it stopped.
yeah.
Immediately we got the guy a job. He's been employed ever since. It's been another 5 years.
At least.
But we did all that before I got sick. So when you do that, you know, and can follow through on it, see that you're improving somebody's life
Mhm.
and helping them when they are so desolate and so desperate, then that's very rewarding. And there's a number of other cases that we worked on.
Then, you know, going back to me, the other thing I enjoy, oh, well, you
Uh-huh.
enjoy too, is eating out in the evening
Oh.
and having friends,
Yes.
having friends after dinner or having them here.
Uh-huh.
We did a lot of entertaining at one time. Right now, we don't do it, but
Yeah.
we did it one time. And enjoyed that, and having friends in and talking to them, seeing them. That's always,
Next question.
Yeah, good. Okay. This goes back a little bit, mainly to Uncle Dick. I'm interested in learning about your relationship with your sisters and brother as you were growing up. How would you describe it? And you can pick any slice of time in there that you think of, whether you were real little kids or maybe adolescents or whatever is memorable to you.
Well, there were four of us
Four of you.
in a small bedroom, 3-bedroom house with one bathroom.
Okay.
And I think the other three were more Norwegian by temperament than I was. And consequently, I was always the bad guy. They were always blaming me for everything. And
I
we
think
just
you
go
were the
round
bad
and
guy.
round and round.
And some of the time they were even wrong.
Yeah, most of the time they were even wrong. Most of the time they
Some
were
of
wrong.
it.
But anyway, it was, there was turmoil, like, you know, constantly, because I was out doing things. I was on the football team, I was on the student government, I was on this and that, going to meetings, and they just sent it. You know, never did much of anything. Kitty sang in the choir, Nancy played the organ. So I was always rushing around and center of attention. I think there was a resentment, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so that was kind of the atmosphere in which we grew up. And then as soon as I found a way out of, I graduated high school, found a way out of there by way of football scholarship, I got out of Coatesville and I've only gone back to visit relatives.
Yeah.
And the high school reunion. But that was kind of the atmosphere.
You felt it was too closed in in the household and in the small town, that that kind of a place that you wanted to spend. You didn't want to spend the rest of your life in that kind of
Yeah,
atmosphere.
you've been to Coatesville. It's not a nice town. It's not nice people.
although the area you grew up in is a nice area.
Mhm.
It's a nice area, and that,
That's right, but I
Respect.
still, the town didn't like me.
Because you kind of stuck out. You maybe
Well, my mother was president of PTA
Mhm.
and Sunday school teacher. My father had a job where nobody else had a job in Depression. You know, those kind of
Oh.
things set me aside.
Yeah.
And I know I had an awful time breaking into the football team because that was all the other type.
Mhm.
But I broke through and came out all right. But I never felt I belonged in that town. I never felt the town liked me, and I didn't like the town. So we're very happy parting of the ways.
Oh, I see.
So that's,
Did you ever have any regrets about having gone so far from Coatesville? That it
no,
was hard to get.
not really.
it would be nice to be closer.
Mhm.
I had
My
a chance
family
to go
or
with
his family.
Armstrong Corporal William in Lancaster instead of coming
I
to
see.
Eli Lilly in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
But when I interviewed the guy in Lancaster, they were having union troubles that centered around the engineering and industrial engineering department.
I see.
And he said, I don't have the guts to bring you in here.
Mhm.
I just had to get cut up by this mess that's going on.
Mhm.
Lilly never had a union, still doesn't. And, you know, 25,000 employees around the world. And we have syndicates that special governments will force you to have a relationship, an interference between the employee and the manager. But those are government-ordered syndicates, they're not union. And so Lilly never had a union. During the whole Depression, they never laid anybody off.
Mhm.
And never cut a penny's wages. Having grown up in Coatesville, where it's absolutely desolate, the whole town went down when the mill went down. It was horrible. So when I saw this, and I'd worked in the steel mills that are pretty dirty and ugly and whatnot, I got out here and here's a whole room full of people in white coats, very clean and airy. Wow. Don't regret it.
Yes.
That was 38 and a half years ago.
You could see that that was the kind of life that you wanted to live, or that you felt you were meant to do.
Plus the fact that this turns out to be and I could see an excellent place to raise a family.
It is, really.
It's not the great
Was,
big
but-
metropolitan thing you
Yes.
get, you know, in the east.
Yeah.
It wasn't a little rinky-dinky town, but it's
It's
a
a
cultural town.
Right, and a city of homeowners
Uh-huh.
and families.
Yes.
Great accent.
A community where people seem to really care for
Right.
each other and.
And their lawns, you go up and down the
Mhm.
streets here, and everybody's got their lawn cut, trimmed, and,
Yeah.
Yes.
you know, it's just neat, that's all.
What was your relationship to your parents? Was it contentious? You feel that that you were not given the same attention or respect or
No, I
Accord that
didn't
your
have
brothers-
that,
brothers and
frankly,
sisters.
my relationship with my mother was much, much closer than with my father.
Mhm.
He was a very reticent person, and he was pretty set in his ways. There was one way, and that was his.
Uh-huh.
And my mentality doesn't quite cotton to that. So
Well, you know, he came from the old country.
Yeah.
And this was what he believed in.
When you were really young, did you feel that that you were trying to break through that? I mean, when you were
not
maybe
when I was young, but
6,
when I
7,
got
8 years old or so?
teenager and whatnot, then
Uh-huh.
but you know, business at 6 o'clock in the evening, the old man would sit down at the table, and there better be 4 Norwegians with their hands and faces clean and their mouths shut, and we're going to eat dinner. And if you weren't there at 6 o'clock, you didn't get dinner. And I was playing football, and the practice go on till 5:36, quarter after 6. I'd come home, right on in the room.
Huh.
Well, then my mother would slip me a sandwich and something, you know, after she fell asleep. But there was a difference of opinion and a difference of background and a difference of personality between my father and I. Now, in later years, we got to be fairly good friends.
Mhm.
I grew
Yes,
up,
they did. They were very good friends in later years.
I grew up-
They did things together and talk, I can hear, you know,
What did you say later years was? After you
a happier time for us after we were married.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
they would come out here, and he and his father seemed to enjoy each other then.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
but it's just that, like, when I was going to college, if you don't go to a mechanical engineering school, you can't be educated.
Mhm.
And you're gonna go to mechanical engineering school. And you're gonna go to Drexel Institute of Technology inside Philly and drive
This
on
is your
the-
dad telling you.
Drive on the train every day.
I see.
They didn't even have a football team. So when I was listed, offered a bunch of scholarships, I picked the best one out and took it off.
Uh-huh.
And reflected years later when we were doing something, built the house, I guess. And they came out, I showed him the plans, and of course he read things pretty well. Looked that over and he said, boy, a house like that ought to cost about so much. He wasn't very far off. I said, that's about right.
Yeah.
And he said, well, who's giving you the money? Because her mother was giving us the money to buy the house. I said, no, we're building ourselves. I said, what do you think I make? He said, I don't have any idea. It drives your mother crazy because you won't tell her. So I went in and got the last prior year's tax return, came out and handed it to him. And his reaction was automatic. What could you do for a company that's worth that kind of money?
So he felt that he didn't respect you very much, though.
Well, he didn't respect what I did because I didn't listen to him. See, your father went on to engineering school and they got along fine. They're more the same temperament. But it was a temperament thing as well as a hard-headedness, I guess, on my part.
But he didn't think you deserved that kind of a
No,
salary.
he couldn't understand.
So he didn't understand what you were doing,
Oh, okay.
that they could pay you that.
He didn't realize that
Yeah.
that the mechanical engineering degree was worth that amount of money to
Right.
a up and growing company.
No, if you were a mechanical engineer, you were nothing. my degree was in business administration and industrial engineering.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah, now
And-
that,
I see.
Then later on, he said something about mechanical engineers.
Yeah,
And I said, well, I hire them and fire them, and architects and chem engineers. He said, you do? I said, it was a shock because in his mentality, if somebody was a mechanical engineer, they were trained and intelligent. And if they weren't, then when I left, heck, we go do this college thing on your own.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna get to the couple of those related questions later, but tell me more about your dad's work and how he supported the family in those days. I know he worked at Luke and Steel.
Well, he was a specialist in steel,
Mm-hmm.
and when we were in Butler, he went there because there were
Okay, all right.
sweet,
child.
Yeah,
Ross.
cool.
take
Take
care,
care.
honey.
Yeah, I'll email you once so you can get my email address in case you got any other questions or something.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool.
You take care and good luck in school.
Yep, see you later.
See
Bye.
you, hon,
Yeah.
take care. You get out okay?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Have a good trip back.
Thanks, appreciate it.
What was the last question you asked?
Oh, I was asking about your dad, how he supported, but if you, anytime along the line, if you wanna stop or take a break or quit or anything, then let me know.
I just lost track.
Mhm.
He was a specialist in steel,
Mhm.
educated in Norway, came here, couldn't speak the language, and went first to Boston where there were a bunch of Norwegians,
Okay.
and then to Minneapolis, St. Paul where there were a bunch of Norwegians. And then they got him down to Butler, which is north of Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
and his boss, I guess, two
You
levels,
saw his star, excuse me.
Yes, yes, I saw.
two levels up were Norwegians, but he was very happy. But then they could see that that company was going under, it was Pullman Standard,
Uh-huh.
and they told him, because it was close to him, as they said, if you get a chance to get out of this, before the Depression,
Oh.
you ought to take it and get out of here, because this place is going down. And then Lucan in Coatesville contacted him, and he went out and looked at Coatesville, had the same reaction I didn't want any part of it.
Mhm.
But his boss is persuaded, it's a good company, and
Huh.
they come after you, and that's good. So he went there and was doing fine up until the Depression hit. We had a full-time maid and a new car and that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then the Depression hit. 95% of the people that worked in the mill were laid off. 5% stayed on. By that time, he had gone to be head of the estimating department. So if there was any business coming in, it had to be estimated.
Yeah.
So he stayed on and was one of the very few that worked clear through the Depression,
I see.
although at continually reduced salary.
Yeah.
So, and he did a real bang-up job of that, and providing for us. We always had clothes for the house,
Mhm.
food, that kind of stuff. But there weren't many extra. And
Yeah.
it wasn't his fault. It was the Depression.
Yeah.
I think
You were lucky you had what you had at that time, I
Yes, that's right. That's
imagine.
people that didn't live through that Depression in the distressed area don't have a clue. Families were breaking up, husbands that hit the road, leave a wife and kids there,
Mhm.
you're on your own, and away they go. It was, and these were people that you knew, people you had school with, it wasn't pleasant.
No, I'm sure wasn't.
But he went through that, and I think he was very highly respected at the company for his professionalism and his engineering abilities.
Uh-huh.
And he was, I think he ended up as about as highly a respected person as there was in Coatesville. But he was very quiet, didn't say much, but he just did what was needed. He did work around the church and delivered meals to people that were starving and
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. So he gained a lot of respect, and I had a lot of respect for him. I just didn't agree with a lot of his
Yes.
outlook on life.
how important were your friendships to you as a child?
Very important. In fact, the one closest friend I have, we're still friends after some 65
Which is
years.
true,
Yes.
a wonderful.
I mean, I know
person.
that that's why you come back to Coatesville,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
visit some
But he
childhood.
got as the president of our class, and it still has reunions. Used to have them every 5 years, and as we look at the crowd each year, we think we better speed this up so we have them about every 2.5 years. The group's getting smaller.
It's a good, a really good group, though, a large group. I'm
Yeah.
amazed at how many people are there and how good they are.
So have you gotten to know very many of them then?
Oh,
or-
yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Betty and I, his buddy, Ed, and his wife Betty, we're very close friends,
Uh-huh.
very close.
And she's got other friends there.
Yeah,
in
we'll have other
Coatesville.
friends there too.
Yes.
It was a strange town. Coatesville, strange town to grow up in.
Mm-hmm.
There was a pocket of Italians. There was a pocket of Hungarians. There was a pocket of Polacks. And when I'm talking about pocket, I'm talking about sections of town.
Yeah.
And here was the black section.
So if a family of one of those ancestries moved to town, they'd pretty much know where they need to live. And,
Keep in mind that in the early 20s, that when they came with that open hearth, that's an open hearth furnace, Americans couldn't stand the heat. But the southern Europeans, from southern Italy, from southern Spain, from southern Portugal, or Yugoslavia, places like this, they could stand the heat. So they were brought over to work.
in the
And
mills.
very, very few of them could speak English.
Yes.
They'd
And
get
never
over
did,
here,
really.
they'd get over here and get going on the job, and then get some money together, and then bring their wives or their sweethearts or whatever back, to come over to be married. And they'd come over completely ignorant of English. And we literally had trouble on the police force where they'd have to have trilingual people
Uh-huh.
to go into these areas, because if something happened and a policeman went in and nobody could understand what the hell he was talking about.
Yeah.
So this, this made a big impression on me. And it was that kind of segmented society that bothered me.
Yes.
So, but it was an experience.
What you did as a child was play football a lot. Did you get into that fairly young, or did you start that in?
Yeah, we played
high school?
sandlot football. Well, of course, I was in there, baseball, football, basketball,
Mhm.
in sandlot.
Uh-huh.
And then when I got to the 8th grade, they had organized football. And I got into that in the 8th grade, 9th grade, 2 years of junior high, 3 years of senior high, and 4 years in college.
Mhm.
So it was a very dominant factor in my life, was football.
Uh-huh.
Because if you were on the football squad and you were one of the regulars, you got privileges and you got recognition that other people didn't get. The same thing's going on today,
Mhm.
except now it's money that they're regular. We didn't say any money, but the mere fact that you were on the football team, that
Were you thinking of a college scholarship at the time, or were you just looking for the?
I liked the game at first. Then when it came time to talk about college,
Mhm.
with 4 kids and this diminished income of my father because of the Depression, there was a little money, and I think Aunt Kitty used most of it in the first year or so. So there just wasn't money for people to go to college.
Mhm.
And so I got this scholarship that guaranteed me 4 years. That's why I went down to a little unknown school. Because they came up and said, we'll guarantee you 4 years of education, whether you make the club or not, break a leg or not.
Mhm.
But you gotta stay eligible with grades, and you don't get any help from sympathetic professors. You have to stay out of trouble on campus. They had a student government body. And you had to stay out of trouble downtown with police. And meeting those requirements, your scholarship my hometown down with me,
Who's they? What do you mean they took?
college.
The
They
college.
came up to recruit me,
Okay.
and they said to the principal, the coach, Matt, the athletic director said to the principal, you don't have any others like this? And the principal said, yeah, I got one bigger than he is and smarter. And,
So you were pretty much one of the best on the team then.
yeah, I was all county, you know, some of that kind of stuff, all Chester County, which was big for them.
Uh-huh.
And, so they brought this guy down, and I've always said that I think when the coach saw him come through the door, he wanted to throw me back like a fisherman. This guy was 6'3", 220, and he was eager, beaver, and smarter, you know, a straight A student. But he didn't have coordination, and he had played hard and diligently through high school, but never earned enough quarters to get a letter. So his senior year, we awarded him a letter for the monogram club because of his efforts, which showed on the record that he was a letterman on the football team.
Uh-huh.
Well, he also was very hungry and wanted a college education, his from poor parents. And so down we went. About halfway through his sophomore year, they felt there was something wrong with him. He couldn't fall right. He'd get in and flat around and that kind of stuff, and they couldn't seem to teach him how to fall right. So they took him to the orthopedic surgeon, who said, he's grown so fast, because he's 6'4" in those days, was a giant.
Mm-hmm.
He's grown so fast, his knees haven't developed right, and he'll never have lateral movement.
Oh.
Football, you gotta have lateral movement, lowest front. So they dismissed him from the program. One big reason was they were afraid he'd hurt the few scholarship players that we had
Oh.
in practice and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a neat guy, and here again, you know, A student. So he began dating this pretty little girl. And I told her he and I were roommates, and I told her one night, I said, you're fickle. I said, you're not treating my roommate right. No, I'm not fickle. She thought that was horrible. I'd look up in the stands, and here he'd be sitting there with his pretty little girl waving the flag, and I'm down there playing 55 minutes a night, getting the hell kicked out of me. So I got tried to persuade her she ought to be on the first team. It turns out that it was this one right here.
I had already broken up with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, get them out.
But I got my education,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't have gotten it otherwise. I could still be pounding steel down in Plant 4.
Yeah.
And then taking myself out of the system. Your father came along, and there was enough money to start him at Duke, because things had improved as the war was breaking out.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went off to service and came back with GI and was able to complete his education at Duke.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nancy came along and things were better then, so they could afford her to go to, what's she, Slippery Rock or something.
No.
Well, she went to some college and then
Yeah.
took nursing, but it was, the atmosphere was different. You know, people would say, why do you put up with this? Why do you let him beat the hell out of you? You don't have to do that. Well, we did. It's that or nothing, you know. And I had worked steel mills in the summertime, and that didn't fit my hands all that well. I did the best job I could. But to do that the rest of the life in a dingy old steel mill with a bunch of slugs, you know, around,
Mm-hmm.
it's not for me. That would motivate me, you know, to get back and do a better job, my grades, do a better job. So that's where
How did you happen to make your way to Catawba University or college or
college.
college?
It was within 40 miles of my home.
Was it? Okay.
And I had been up there to parties and some things, and
Mm-hmm.
had friends there, and I just liked it better than any other place.
You didn't live at home when you went to that school?
Oh,
did
no.
you?
I lived right there on campus.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you finish?
Oh, yeah.
get
Sure.
your degree? So you both finished at the same time?
No,
No, a year later, she's so much younger
I
than
was gonna
I am.
say,
So you had gone off and gotten a job after you finished and just still stayed in touch with her while she finished?
right.
Yeah, well, she
right.
kept the string through my nose all the time I was
Oh,
up here.
come on,
So you,
come on.
you were actually in Indianapolis by yourself,
Yeah,
Right,
and then
yeah.
you're probably thinking of getting married at the time,
Well, we
or?
talked-
Yeah,
about it.
he rented a, little.
I rented an apartment,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and
We decided to get
I
married.
lived in a YMCA, and that was miserable. It's all I could afford. And as things got better for me, really, I was able to get this apartment.
Uh-huh.
And then when she graduated, I went down, we got married, and came back to that little apartment.
Sitting there one night, and all of a sudden, here come these little mice.
Oh, no.
Yes.
We've got our work cut out for us.
It's a section of town today that's
Oh, all right.
completely undesirable.
But it was nice, they wasn't very bad.
So we went from there.
And I taught school.
Oh,
I
Well,
was
you
a teacher, yeah,
Had a degree, we taught school.
yeah, in the city here.
what, did you teach at one particular grade, or at a school, or?
Second and third grade,
Oh, okay. How
Yeah.
many years did you do that?
one.
No.
I
She
would like to have taught
She
longer.
swallowed a pumpkin seed.
Yeah, I would love to have taught longer. I
Swallowed
love
it,
teaching.
swallowed up
I
in her
really
stomach.
love to teach. It's great satisfaction teaching
Yeah.
these little kids and seeing them grow and catching on
Yeah.
and reading and all that. It was fun.
Did you have any hesitation about coming way up here to Indianapolis, or were you thinking you'd live your life down in the south?
Well, I had hoped we'd get back down to Charlotte sometime.
Mhm.
In fact, we had planned to live in Charlotte,
Yeah.
but things were too good up here, Lewis. So
Well, there was
we
just
never
not the
did
kind of work
really.
down there then, there is now, but
Yes.
it wasn't then,
So we
for my background.
stayed here.
Were you married in North Carolina?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
her
yeah.
living
Oh, yeah.
room,
Yeah.
dining room or something.
Living room, dining room, sunroom,
Yeah.
you know, run of the house.
Did you stay very close to your family?
Oh,
after you-
yes, very close. Oh, yes. My mother was always, see, she was a widow. My
Oh.
father had died when he was 54.
Oh, okay.
And, so she was a widow and she was up here a couple of times a year. She would come out there. And we had a
Stay for
a drugstore, a pharmacy. And so she worked in the pharmacy down there. So she couldn't come with Christmas time and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any ambitions when you were a child? Did you know what you wanted to be? Were you thinking of having a professional career, or were you even thinking about?
I played with the idea of being a lawyer for a little bit, but you
Mhm.
can't keep Fort College, it's a little hard to think about law school. No, I wanted to get into management,
Uh-huh.
business management, which I did, and very fortunate. But, Lily was good to me, and I was good with them.
What time?
After I'd been there about 3 years in industrial engineering, some of these groups, the opportunity opened up in international. See, I was injured, lost a kidney in
Your senior year.
the early spring of '43. My last year was '42 playing football.
Mm-hmm.
Then this kidney had to come out, so he took the kidney out. I was enlisted in the reserve corps. I had enlisted in 42. And when they saw my grades and things, they said, well, we're gonna send you back at your 4th year, because next year we won't have so many candidates for officers. So there were several of us that were sent back on that basis. And while I was back on that basis, in the enlisted reserve, private first class, blah, 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 and this kidney problem came up, and they took it out, and then they called our unit to duty. And I told the doctor there in town, well, doc, I won't see you for a while. I said, why? I said, well, I'm going to the Army. He said, what? I said, you're not going to the Army. I said, yeah, I am. I'd gotten over the surgery, and I felt I was strong enough. He said, no. We were about 2 miles out of town. He said, you got your orders with you? I said, no. He said, well, go get them and bring them back. Yeah, that was like 5 o'clock one night. About noon the next day, I get a telegram from the officer that had signed my orders to Fort Meade, Maryland.
Mhm.
Please disregard your orders to report for duty and sit tight, and we'll get in touch with you. And they sent a group down, looked me over, interviewed the surgeon, looked at the x-rays and all this and that, and they were back and said, you're unfit for military service,
Mhm.
and we'll give you a Class 1C medical discharge. And my first reaction was, I don't want it. This is our war, we're gonna get that little rascal and tear him apart. You know, I was a fighter, I wanna go. You can't go. So then on that basis, I was trying to catch up with my work, trying to keep an A- average in my major and minor, catch up with my work, and all this was piling up. The prof said, what are you gonna do? I said, I don't know, I suppose go back to work in steel mill or something for the war effort. And he said, pharmaceuticals and drugs are as important to the war effort as steel. That's what he talked about. He said, why don't you take it, he was from Illinois, why don't you take advantage of that? And get in touch with this Eli Lilly and Company. I didn't even know where they were. I had to get a map on to find where Indianapolis was. And I said, nah, Doc, I'm not too interested. He said, well, can I write to them and give you your data? I said, yeah, go ahead. So very shortly I got a letter from them. See, that's exactly what they wanted. Industrial engineering was so new that only Penn State and University of Iowa conferred degrees in industrial engineering back in the early 40s.
Yeah.
So here I came with a minor in it with an awful lot of the work. And Lilly was very strong on industrial engineering, and so they invited me out. And they said, we'd like to talk to you very much. I came out and I took a look at this place and I said, I'm going back to Coatesville. So I stayed here. And lucky because when I got in international, I got in, see, everybody else is coming back to service. So they made a list of all the guys with engineering and related background to see, would you like to take over the engineering aspect of the new international corporations just for me? And one after the other been away from their families, said, hell no, I don't want any part of that. That cleared out to me and said, well, yeah, I think I'd like that. So I went in 46. I joined the company in 42. Went in international in 46. Took off from there.
Mhm.
I was almost a charter member and grew with the organization.
What was the most memorable world event that took place when you were a child? You can remember.
When I was a child,
When you were a child, what events
I would
had a
say
big
that
impact on you?
the fire at Lakehurst of the dirigible, the German dirigible, forgot what the name of it was, but they were bringing this German dirigible before the war.
Hindenburg or something.
Yeah, bringing this thing into Lakehurst. And
New
something
Jersey.
sparked something and it blew up and just,
Okay.
of course, we were close enough that this was.
Yeah. Did you have any favorite teachers?
Oh yeah.
Why were they your favorites?
Well, this one at college, the one that sent me up here, he, I think read me better than most people.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, he said, you're kind of faking your way through, you're not working as hard as you ought to be. And I resented that a little bit, and I realized he's probably right. So I straightened up and flew right from then on, and I liked him. We had a teacher in Coatesville, the name of Raymond Webster, who went on to become a state representative from our section. He was a math teacher, and he was down to earth and practical and tolerant of young bucks that thought they were everything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I still got the lessons across.
How did you started talking a little bit about potentially joining the army or going into World War II? When World War II started, how did it affect your lives?
It was horrendous, frankly.
It really was.
'Cause number one,
No doubt about that.
Here I was, a great big husky guy, just off the college campus. You know, just through 9 years of football, 4 years of steel mill. And I was ready to fight, and they said, you can't.
So the big impact was that you were disappointed in not being allowed to participate.
One thing.
But this town filled up with soldiers. I mean, there's Fort Benjamin Harrison, Camp Atterbury, Stoutfield. Just, you know,
In
so
and
many
out.
military things that you go downtown, you couldn't get in a movie, you couldn't get in a restaurant. You know, just be so many people here. And so here I was walking around, big husky guy, and everybody said, "What the hell aren't you in the service?"
Yeah.
One gal even, I was doing some work. This one gal jumped up from the belt where she was working and ran to the restroom. And the supervisor went in to see what was wrong with her. And she was in there crying. Well, the department head came over, went back, checked with her, what's going on. Says, well, she's upset because that guy's out there. And the department head came over and about ripped streaks off my hide. And I said, you know, I've done nothing. I've done nothing to provoke her. Well, then when it got down to the bottom, her son and her husband were both in the military. I think one of them would be missing in action. And here I was, a great big guy, clean white shirt, you know, studying some of this and that.
Maybe thought you were given special privileges for some
Why the
reason.
hell is that guy here and not out in the military? I had 2 or 3 experiences like that. They weren't very pleasant.
Yeah.
But I couldn't, I tried to get back in 2 or 3 branches of the military.
Mhm.
They wouldn't have me. Then I found out after the war that following World War I, the highest claims against the government, monetary claims for military people, were mental, heart, and kidneys.
Oh.
So the edict went out, anybody's got any of that? No, we're not gonna take it, and we're not gonna take it.
Yeah.
And I tried 2 or 3 times to get back in a specialized program.
Mhm.
They wouldn't take me.
Yeah.
And so that did bother me, really, I mean, it really bothered me a lot. And when the war was over and we get travel international, well, it got diminished, but it left a mark on me.
Uh-huh.
That's true.
How did it affect you?
The same way. I think we were all thinking that our lives were going to change and
Yeah.
be different from there on in.
Uh-huh.
And then when we decided to get married, and we got married, even then, and you listen to the news and think, how can this be, you know?
Yeah.
Then when it was over, we were greatly relieved. So
Uh-huh.
after that, things seemed to settle down and we were okay.
Did you lose friends?
Yes,
Mhm.
I did.
Yeah.
Very close friends. Very close friends. 2 close friends.
Oh.
And that hurts. And my
Yeah.
brother was over. His brother was there.
Mhm.
Now those things really get you.
Your brother JC.
Mm-hmm.
But there was nothing I could do about it.
No.
I even had one unit, the Navy had a repair ship that would lay off a convoy that was filled with engineers and technical people. And if a ship got hit in a convoy, then they would radio back to the repair ship. I'm hit in this section, it's this much damage, this hole's this big, so forth and so forth, and it would drop out of the convoy, rendezvous with the repair ship, and while the 2 would rendezvous, they'd be making plates and making patches and whatnot big enough to go in, and they'd go in and tack weld these things together and patch up the ships and put it back in the convoy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was told I could get in that without passing the physical. But when it got, well then, I think I had to have 5 years experience, actual experience as an industrial engineer. And I had about 1.5. But my boss was very happy with progress, and I asked him, I said, he felt I would, with the equivalent of a 5-year industrial career. Of course, he was sharp back. Why do you ask that question? I told him, honestly. He said, no way could I sign a piece of paper that say you're equivalent to 5 years. And he could have if he wanted to, and I could have at least got into that branch instead. Without that letter, I couldn't get in. So, it had an effect that's lasted, you know. As it turned out, Jim was called for Korea, and at the last minute was
Vietnam.
knocked out on his back or his asthma.
I think a little bit of both.
But he was excused from service.
Yeah.
Ed was too young to come.
Yeah, cirrhosis, yeah,
Okay.
heart covered too.
So,
That was one thing. Then he also had a lot of allergies.
Yeah.
But they told him that wouldn't affect him because he would be in. He came home and he was in tears. I was in tears. But we had to, say.
well, they had
no.
decided to get married.
No,
and he-
not at that time.
Yes, you were.
Okay.
Said, we're gonna go get married. So they went and got married and went to Ocean City, Maryland for their honeymoon.
Well, you're talking about Ed and Patty.
Talking about Jim
Okay.
and Diane. And, so we got a call or a notice of some kind here.
Yeah,
Because
you're
this
right.
was still his address.
You're right, saying that
That
he had been.
He had been decided he wasn't acceptable for military
Well, it
service.
wasn't 4F though. It was it was something else.
But anyway, he,
Could have been.
so I tried to get in touch with him down at Ocean City, Maryland. The only address I had was a rental agency. So I called him, said, oh no, we don't get messages out to people if we rent houses. So I told him the story. This little gal said, oh my goodness. He said, I think I'll go up there myself tonight
Oh,
and give them this message. So she did. That's how they found out.
wow.
Because he knew he could get married and bring the service.
Oh, I see.
Something like that.
But see, my father didn't win because he had a hernia.
Uh-huh.
And he tried to get it repaired, and the steel mill he's working for in Pittsburgh said, absolutely not, we can't let you go, you're in a critical job. And it couldn't be off long enough to get the hernia repaired. If he didn't get the hernia repaired, he wasn't acceptable to the military.
He tried to go into World War One.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he didn't make it. Then I come along to make it. Your father was the only one in the family that made it.
Uh-huh.
So this has been, kind of sensitive spot.
How did the war affect your view on world or national politics? Did it change it much, or
Well, I think
Didn't-
it did.
Well, I honestly don't think I had too much of a view before World
Yeah.
War II.
Right.
But then right after World War II, I got traveling around the world.
sure?
And then I began to formulate ideas and views that, that were related to what had happened and what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that are going on today that were forecast and nobody listened to.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Okay, well, I'm going to shift a little farther forward into your career now. You were talking a little bit about how you got to Indianapolis and did you miss Coatesville, and we talked about that a little bit. And in your career, you said 3 years into your job, you were offered the job for
International engineering.
doing more international work. Did you were thinking that you wanted to do more traveling at that point in your life?
It wasn't necessarily that I wanted to do more travel,
3 years into your job, you had Jim then?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
but a lot of guys were coming back from service that had been in these fields. So I kept moving down on the totem pole.
Mm-hmm.
And they came along and said, if you'll take this, we can fast forward your career.
Uh-huh.
And actually, traveling was not in the picture at that time.
Yeah, well, sure did.
Well, some, but not
Not as much as I did.
nearly like we thought.
Yeah.
But So when I got this opportunity, I thought, well, this is how I can get ahead of the game,
Yeah.
and I did. And went pretty well, and I had 5 years of French, 2 years of Latin, 5 years of French in high school and college. And when we started this work, we were working primarily in Latin America, so I tutored here in town.
So you felt that the languages in high school came pretty easily to you then? You enjoyed them?
No,
or?
I didn't enjoy them too much,
Mhm.
but there was a drilling, that's more of it went into my hollow head than I thought.
Uh-huh.
But,
It was worse with French, wasn't
yeah, well, they were Latin, 2 years of Latin.
it? Yeah, that's right.
So then I tutored for a couple of years here, about three nights a week or something like that, with a Mexican woman, 2 or 3 of us did. And then started to travel in South America.
Tutored, you mean you were learning Spanish?
Spanish,
Or,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And so then I got down to Mexico and on down into South America. I saw something strange, that Spanish is a generic language, but the Mexican Spanish is unique. The Colombian Spanish is unique.
Mhm.
Cuban Spanish is unique.
Was it
Our-
that different that it was difficult for you to learn? But you said a Mexican woman was tutoring you.
Yeah, but, I mean, I learned that basic Mexican Spanish, but when I started to move around, there were words that didn't make sense
Oh, I
to other
see.
people, see. So what I did, I developed a program. The business day would be over about 6. I said, well, I'll go home, maybe have a drink and go to the restaurant, get some dinner. Go to the restaurant at 6:30, and the waiters are still in their shirt sleeves trying to set up the table. They didn't start serving until 9 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And,
Yeah, I don't know how
well,
many-
you sit around the bar and get to where you can't see the restaurant. When
Were you
there.
with him at the time? You were
No,
going
no.
with him on these? Okay.
Never, never, never.
Huh.
But anyway,
Unfortunately.
I decided this wasn't too good. So I went to the American Embassy and said, I'd like somebody that, teaches English and knows English to work with me on an informal basis. Like today, I tried to say so-and-so, and this is what I said. And the teacher said, no, here you say it this way for this reason, and so forth. A practical approach. So then I got to the place where I did that. Every place I went, see, the Argentine Spanish is so full of Italian words. I didn't know Italian at that time.
Huh.
And Mexican is full of Indian words. And I think Venezuela and Colombia claimed that they were the purest Spanish that is from Spain.
Yeah.
But then you go to, I went to Spain and tried to use this Spanish. They lisped and had all this funky business. So what I did was made a career there. Not made a career, but it was better for me to be there than sitting in a bar, and also equipped me to do what I wanted to do.
It was just a basic skill that you felt you could learn that would help you in a whole lot of the new places that you needed to go.
But it was a practical approach. You could conjugate verbs till you're blue in the face. You could study vocabulary. But how do you put it together?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, 2 or 3 times I'd get stuck in my work, and I felt I was fairly conversant. And a guy standing there said, I don't understand what you're saying. So then, go to the teacher, I said, this is what I was trying to say. In English, this is what I was trying to say about, and this is what I said in Spanish. Oh no, that's why you had a problem. You don't say it, we say it differently down here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that kind of stuff was practical. I went into Colombia, and our man was supposed to be English speaking, that is our general manager. And he was mad as hell because we were putting an operation in Cali, he wanted it in Bogota. And he met me at the airport. And I had trouble communicating with him. He was speaking English. I couldn't tell if it was English word he was mispronouncing or a Spanish word that I didn't know. So I began this program of mine. And when I left, probably what, 5 weeks later, 6 weeks later, something like that, the same guy took me to the airport, and we were just completely fluent.
Yeah.
You know, it's the idiosyncrasies of the languages that are different that people don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say, oh, my name is Joe, hello, how are you? But that doesn't mean anything. So,
And Dick learned his language fast. Jim learned language fast. Jim was good at it.
then when we went to Italy, I was gonna build that factory over there, and I realized that if I didn't speak Italian, they were gonna take my pants off. And so I went down to Berlin, 5 nights a week, from about 7 to 9:15 or 9:30. And Berlitz, teaches you in a different way.
Is that a college in the area?
Berlitz
No, that's-
is a company that
Language.
specializes in language.
I see, okay.
So the teacher would say, bicchieri. Bicchieri. Must mean glass. Okay, bicchieri means glass. We were all, I guess you never did speak a word of English till I was 2/3 of the way through the course. Then she came out one night, wanted to tell me something about Jim's school, but she didn't think was so good. It was important I know about it, so she waited till we stepped out of the building onto the street, and then began to speak perfect English. I said, I ought to hit you right in the mouth. But I did learn Italian, and within about 3 months I was moving pretty well in that, still do.
Mm-hmm.
Now Jim picked up Italian and French good, and he was telling me today, they were down in Mexico, and he felt 4 or 5 days he was kind of getting the hang, so he couldn't hold a conversation. He knew how to say.
Was that his first exposure to Spanish though, or Mexican Spanish, or?
Oh, Spanish.
Spanish, yes, it was, really.
And after 4 or 5 days, wow.
Well,
But you see,
It
he
is
picked up French and Italian in a remarkable
it really,
rate, at a remarkable rate.
and people speak French, French to him,
Uh-huh.
and they just can't believe it, that he's
Yeah.
so good at it. But I think it is a talent. I think he hears it and it comes out his mouth.
Well, now Ed, was little. He was 4 years old.
And he's the one that's supposed to pick it up so fast.
And he did.
Well, he
The
did,
maid-
but not as fast as Jim.
No, but the maid didn't speak a word of English. And Jim was down in boarding school at Notre Dame International High School in Rome. We're up the farm. So this maid came in every morning, and she was the one that Ed would talk to. And it wasn't long till they were communicating pretty
Yeah.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And she was giving a little lecture about deportment every day when he'd leave, and get him all done up in his little short pants and jacket. And
Outfit.
when he left, said, you want to speak English? You want to speak Italian? Okay. He
Yeah.
was completely fluent.
Oh.
Then he came home at 8. Came home, we had leased our house and moved back in, and the same kids were there to play with. He went out and started playing with them, and his play language was Italian.
Yeah, I was
Forward.
kind of sad, but,
And he'd say, throw me the ball, it's my turn, or something like that.
yeah.
And these kids said, look, if you don't speak English to us, you have to go home.
He came in crying. Oh.
And I mean, he shut her down right then and there. And we never once, but we tried to have a Italian night every Thursday. And I'd get home from work, we'd speak in Italian, that would be all, keep everybody's language.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't do it, just wouldn't do it. So, time went by and he took his wife over. 2 years ago? 3 years ago. He said, you think I'll be able to pick up the language? I said, I don't know. I see, I go to an Italian barber. We've been over here about 50
He
years.
keeps his up with the
okay.
barber.
And
Yeah.
see, he's losing his Italian, and I don't want to lose mine, and so when I go in there, we go for about an hour or so, you get cacking about automobiles and girls and
Mm-hmm.
all the important things in life. And I can keep mine up, so I can still communicate very easily in Italian. So I said to Giovanni, my barber, what do you think? Do you think Mardino, little Ed, is gonna be able to speak? Oh, yeah, if he spoke it completely, he'll speak it. Well, Ed went over with Patty, he's on shore all over Italy, you know. He went to
Oh,
the leather school, which is where we
I
should go and
could've
buy
told him.
excellent
No
leather
way.
things at a decent price.
Uh-huh.
And, he starts out with this, and the guy says, Mister, he told him in English. He said, you got a fantastic accent. You just don't know the damn language. So
No, you
he,
can't pick it up overnight, that's for sure.
so he picked up a little on that trip, and then when he came back, they went again last year, didn't they?
Yeah, I think he did better this,
Well, he went to
That's
school,
right,
he went to
I
this
know.
international school, and he did a lot better. But Jim went back, Jim and Diane went back this year,
last year.
last year. Jim hit the deck running. He was amazed that we'd had all the years we were there. She's still alive, they went around to see her, and, just like acting in Italian.
Yeah,
Jim's good at it.
yeah, he is, he's real good at it, and I can call him and say, Jim, how do you say this? Right now, he can tell me, and I'll look it up or something, and sure enough, that's exactly how it works.
Does he get much of an opportunity to practice or
No.
use it himself?
Italian restaurants.
Yeah. And not much there,
No.
there's not many people that,
There are a few, used to have one or two here,
yeah,
but we're from Italy, and
yeah.
we're from our part of it, shoot,
Not
across
anymore.
the river.
Where else did you travel in your work?
The only time I traveled with my family was in Italy. But I traveled to Bombay, India, set up an operation.
When you would go to set up an operation, would you, would it be that they already had a site picked or people picked or an
Well,
operation?
a site, usually a
Not
site,
necessarily people.
building, not a,
Uh-huh.
see, the first steps were distribution operations, which weren't that complicated. But I'd go in and get the equipment, and the procedures, everything lined up, put it in effect and come home. If a problem, I'd go back.
Mhm.
But I went to India, and then I went to Japan about 3 or 4 times. Went to Australia 3 or 4 times.
You were in England, Great Britain.
England, and, of course, France, where we built a factory, and I thought, well, I'll brush up on my French. And where we built it was the Alsace-Lorraine area, which is that strip of land
Yes.
on the
Mhm.
west side of the Rhine River, which through the 100 Years' War in history was German and French and German and French. Kept switching back and forth, and these Alsatians and the Alsace-Lorraine decided to hell with it, and they developed their own language. It is one mess. I know only one American that could converse in it. It's part German, part French, they cut their words, there's some Slavic in there. Oh, it's just, I don't know how the hell they understand each other. And then they don't want to speak French
Mhm.
because they don't like the French down in
Are they
France.
mostly French ancestry though?
Oh, yeah, French and German.
Mhm.
No, they just think, that time that they told me one time, I said, don't you like the French in Paris? He said, no. The French are roof rabbits. I don't know what roof rabbits are, but it wasn't, I'm
Well, they
sure it
were
wasn't a
there.
complimentary statement. They, but then I went to, of course, Italy and Spain, we built a plant in Spain, and Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela, Cuba. Had the pleasure of being down there right after Fidel went in, but before he declared himself communist.
Yeah.
And they blocked a lot of our money through some shenanigans. So some of us were sent down to try to unblock them. I was the only one of the crew that spoke Spanish. The first guy left at the end of 1 week, and the second guy left at 2 weeks. I stayed there 6
They each call me when they get home, they say, Sarah, now, don't worry about it, he's fine,
Don't worry
just
about
fine.
it. If we let him down there with a whole mess on
What
it.
are you doing? What are you doing?
They had $1 million of our money blocked, and I was able to get about $865,000 of it released.
Mhm.
But I've been told since by a friend of mine at the FBI, don't ever get on a plane that might offload in Cuba. If you're on their persona non grata list, because they realized I stripped it when I left. And so this FBI guy said, yeah, I looked, you tell me about this, and I looked up, said, you're on the persona non grata list for Cuba. So as long as Fidel's in there, don't go near it.
You probably weren't planning to do anyway.
I would know, I wouldn't have been offloaded, I'd stayed in the airplane. But, and I think I was in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, Brazil,
Yeah, I
going
was
to
gonna
big
say,
factory
Peru.
several times, and Canada, and
To the Far East? Australia?
Australia and Japan.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I was in Taiwan briefly for some business. I was living in a factory thing there. I was on some other mission. But see, when I went out, it cost so much to send somebody out. A lot of times they'd get me and say, now here, you're an engineering type, but here's a little marketing problem that we'd like you to take care of. And this guy's gonna tell you about it. He's telling me I'm gonna go out and take care of marketing problems. So I had some assignments like that.
Would you like some water?
Uh,
I'm gonna bring
Okay.
some water in
all
here.
right, let me, stop the
Yeah.
thing for just a
What did
second.
you, I gave you a Coke, didn't I?
Yeah. Okay, we're recording again.
Okay.
We were talking about your international travels and where you like to go. I wanted to follow it up a little bit and ask you, Aunt Sarah, where your favorite places were. I know you didn't go on every one of his trips, or not too many of them, and you're raising children. And did you go on very many more besides Italy?
I took off when my mother came over, and we went to Germany and looked up Daddy's name and looked and tried to trace down where he had, his people were from.
Mhm.
And we found it, actually, we did. We did not get a chance to really go and we saw it, and that was about it. And then my mother, we went through Austria and Switzerland, and we had the boys with us. It was in the summer. Had a wonderful trip. And
So
then we're
you were in Italy from what years?
60 to 64.
Okay, and so Ed was 4 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when my sister-in-law came over, she and I took off
Mhm.
and went just about the same, except we went to Holland also, in Tulip time, and we went up there. It was beautiful. We enjoyed that. And that's about all we did. All I did.
But then the big thing was that when her sister-in-law came, she wanted to go to Norway, and I wasn't all that interested.
Mhm.
I asked my
Yeah,
father,
we went back in 72, didn't we? I
71.
went over, and I said, I'll meet you down there. And I had some things all set up, and they had a party all set up for us and everything. Well, it was late when he got in, so he didn't get to see that. But we had planned to go to, I said, the only thing I wanted to go to Norway, to meet your family.
Yeah.
And so we did, and then on the way up, all the way to a doorway, I thought, oh my gosh, I have no idea what these people are like. Because they had written, I had written and said that we will stay in a hotel in Oslo.
Mhm.
And then we will take off and visit you during the day, or, you know.
How far away from Oslo?
About an hour, wasn't it?
75 miles.
Yeah, about an hour. Yeah. So anyway, they wrote back, and no, there's only one thing to do, and that was to stay with them.
Mhm.
We must stay in their homes. So then we had to let them know that we would stay in their homes.
But see, there were the three of us, Samara,
Yeah.
Sarah,
Okay.
and I.
So we went back and
See,
we
that was the first-
landed in Oslo. I thought, oh my gosh,
What have I gotten into?
what have I gotten into? But they were the loveliest people I think I've ever met. Fabulous.
Have you met any
wonderful
of them?
people.
I met Andreas when he came over
Yeah.
long time ago.
Right.
Well,
That must have been maybe
I-
10 years or something.
that was the first, in 1971, was the first contact between my father's family and the American family, face to face,
Oh.
in 70 years. He left in 1901 and never went back. we went over in 70.
Really?
We, had we been there when we still all had, or had he died before we went the first time? Yeah,
He died before.
But
He did
I
not
know,
know you went.
no, at one time, we came home on home leave about 1962 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And,
You and your family came home from Italy,
Mhm.
came back to Indianapolis.
and then we said to my dad and my mother, why don't you have Kitty and Ted drive you to the New York airport, get on TWA and fly to Paris, but don't get off the plane, stay right off the plane, and fly to Milan. When that flight gets in Milan, I had connection by that time, I could get inside customs, and I could greet them as they came off the steps of the plane.
Uh-huh.
And I'd put them in the car and take them to Florence, and then we thought we might try to let them go north. By this time, the old fellow was too old. Oh, and my mother wanted to go in the worst kind of way.
So she
Oh,
wanted
she
to
couldn't
go
leave.
so bad. She wanted to
Huh.
get over there while we were there. Well, you know, she was so knowledgeable about
Yeah.
all these things. And,
Mm-hmm.
and she knew where we were going, and she knew what we were going to see and get into, and she wanted to see it too. And that was a bad,
But he just
one of the bad
refused.
parts.
He said,
But I
"Mom,
think that we could have arranged that someone kept Grandpa, but I don't think she listened.
no, I don't think she did."
I don't think she listened. But anyway, then she made it, you know, she was satisfied.
So by the early '60s, they were just not able to travel as well then? They were having problems.
Well, see, they,
She was, but I don't think he was.
she died in 50.
Yeah, she died in
67?
68, I think, 68. We've been home.
She died in the fall of 67, he died in the first of 68.
8, right.
But we wanted to get him back and have him see Glad I Built in Florence and see Florence, which is a fabulous city. So he never did make it back, and I think when I was first starting to travel, I was out in India, right after the war. I persuaded him that he ought to go back and visit his people, but he was reluctant. So we set up, okay, we'll arrange for it, and we get boat passage over to Oslo, then we could do this, that, and come back.
I'm sorry, when was this?
This was 1947,
Okay.
and so okay, and Mother started getting her wardrobe together, and
That's
all
what
she
she
was
was sewing
just
and doing
Yeah.
some things.
thrilled
Oh,
to
she's
death,
gonna get to
and
go.
then word came back from the travel agent over there that they had him on the boat going over, had both of them on the boat going over. Coming back, everybody was trying to get out of Europe in '47,
Uh-huh.
you know. So they couldn't get him on a boat, but they put him on a plane.
Okay.
That's when he came with a statement that if God wanted me to fly, he'd put wings on my back. I'm not flying.
Wow. Did he ever fly, do you think?
Yes,
He
came
flew.
out here.
He came here, we had an
After we-
emergency
yeah.
with one of the kids or with her or something, but at that time, no, he wasn't gonna fly. Now, the thing that was ironic, see, I was out in Bombay. I was there 4.5 months or something. But Lily was one of the biggest customers of these steamship lines going to Europe. And the international travel manager was a close buddy of mine.
Mhm.
Had I known about the problem, I could have communicated with him. He could have told one of the steamship lines, you put these people on a boat coming back from Oslo, or forget about Lily's business, you know. Been no problem. I checked with him when I got back. I said there'd been no problem, but I didn't get the communication, and
Yeah.
so when I was ready to come back, well, the word came that they weren't going. So he never got back.
He left Norway in 1901 and never returned.
No.
Never saw
No.
any of his
There was a cousin,
parents or.
second cousin, that
His
came,
parents had died.
by the time he left?
Yes.
Oh, they died when he was
Well, they had,
2 and 4,
yeah,
Wow.
and he was raised by
sisters.
sisters and aunts that we all got to know.
I see.
And he was always kind of, I'm not interested in going back. There's nothing back there I need. I don't want anything back there.
I think he was happy with his family, with your mother,
Yeah.
with his home and what he had achieved here.
Mhm.
I think that he was very
So I
pleased.
asked him one time, why did you leave Norway? He said, there's nothing over there. Bunch of rocks. And I said, well, weren't you some young gals? And he said, no, they're all great big fat cows.
He didn't mean that.
But anyway, he never went back. Then we went again in, when did we go again? 81?
81, 82.
After I retired?
Right.
And your mother and father went, and Kitty and Ted went.
Yes, I do remember that
So
trip.
that was a great trip.
Yes.
But
We
Nancy
loved
and
it.
Bob didn't go.
Mm.
It's a shame Nancy and Bob didn't, or at least Nancy.
Yeah.
But,
But see, my mother was this type of person. I'd be in touch and say, well, my next assignment is to go to Venezuela. And next time I'd be on the phone with her, I'd get a letter from her, and she'd start telling me all about Venezuela.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
the oil and the Maracaibo and where the oil plants are and all this stuff.
Really?
I studied up on it.
Yeah.
I started out doing that, thinking, boy, this is
I think
smart.
we both did. Well, I still did.
I
Yeah,
can
we
get to a
researched.
country and know the background of it and all this and that. Well, then it just started coming so fast and furious that there wasn't any chance. No sooner get back from one place and go to another.
Uh-huh.
But she would know all, come back and say, well, tell me about this India now, did you get over this Madras section, or did you get here? She knew much more about India than I did, and I'd been there for 4.5 months. She's something else. But, no, I was lucky, I had a good career.
Uh-huh. What were your biggest accomplishments?
Well, I suppose the biggest single accomplishment was building the Italian plant all by myself. In the past, we'd get an architect out to get something started, and some mechanical engineers would go out and do this and something.
Uh-huh.
I was in charge of all that. We got a new president, a hot shot, and from Cornell. And he said, you guys have been too comfortable. He said, you've been setting up one of these branches about every 2 or 3 years. He said, we got to move faster now. He said, we got to set up 3 this year. I'm sitting there, I had 18 people out of 3. That's 18 people. Golly. And he said, now, what we're going to do, we'll split your group in half. Half will work on a plant in Germany and half will work on a plant in Venezuela. And I said, well, you said you were going to have 3. He said, oh yeah, our big entree into the common market will be Italy. He said, we got some big bastard been going around for about 14 or 15 years telling people how to build plants and run them. So I think he'd be able to go by himself without the crews from here, without help, and do the job on his own. In my assignment, of which I did.
Yeah.
Killed myself, of which I did. So I had a hunch that one single accomplishment were to be identified, it would be the building of that plant by myself, and the hiring in the people, the buying of the equipment, getting it up and running.
But you also knew that when he started describing that to you, that really was going to be your big break, or a big attribute that you would always.
I was the manager of all that, and all at once he asked me to go do it. That one, at first I wasn't very happy about it, but the fact that
Actually, turned it down at first.
Oh.
And then, well, the reason we turned it down because there was no limit to how long they'd be gone.
Uh-huh.
And they felt like we should have
well, see,
3 years.
Jim was coming up
3,
to
4
college.
years, yeah.
Vietnam War was on.
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be over in Europe and sending a kid back here to go to school and, you know. Well, there were these kind of problems, but, I built the plant. At the time we started, the sales were just about $2 million. By the time I left, with the plant going and products more readily available over there, sales went to about 4.5, 5 million. Then they peaked about 4 or 5 years after I left, to where about $10 to $12 million worth of business is going through that plant. You know, scrap.
Yeah.
So I suppose that was based. There's a lot of other things that, you know,
Right.
I'm proud of what I did. I think one of the better ones is this technical service we were talking about. That I advocated that we had to have good technical service to support our products. And management was mostly marketing, and they didn't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I persisted. And so I had my first technical seminar. And I told the guys, the heads of these plants, companies in Indianapolis, said, your ticket will be, bring to us your biggest accomplishment, details, use a video camera, use slides, whatever you want, but describe to your colleagues or actually your competitors what your biggest success was. And have it in detail so they can pick it up and use it. Well, they're a little reluctant about that, but they, you know, you want to come to Indianapolis, take it. And the other half of the ticket was, bring us your biggest unsolved problem in detail. See if the group can hack at that and help you solve it. First sight of it went beautifully. Guy did something and he, you know, really proud of it and innovation and whatnot. He'd get up there and tell how great he was. No problem. But to get up and say, what was your biggest problem? Well, I don't really have, you know, any big problems. And I just, you know, it's hated to come in and admit that there was something they didn't know. And we finally told them that you're not coming back. You know, to another one. So I had a series of those. And I think in this particular line, we reduced cost of the operation by $3 or $4 million. We avoided investment in future plants to the tune of $5 or $10 million because we had improved the productivity of the machines that were running. So you postpone capital investment,
Yeah.
and you increase the profitability of what you got, and that was pretty widely accepted accomplishment throughout the organization. You got to be kind of trouble to go see Todderud, he'll tell you how to do it.
We were pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
I remember so well.
Huh. Well, Aunt Sarah, what kinds of things did you do when Uncle Dick was either traveling or when you all were living in Italy when he was off working and you were maybe living in a foreign country or home here taking care of the kids? And
there was, when we moved to Italy, of course there was so much to see and so much to do and so much to read about. And then go to the museums and go to the places. Oh, it was fabulous. I loved every minute of it.
Full-time maid, her own car.
Well, I had a full-time, well, she was full-time. Well, she wasn't there over the weekends. I had to cook them.
She'd get there, open up in the morning and get Ed off to school and stay till after supper.
All right.
But Sunday she didn't come out, so I guess that's part of
But
it.
anyway, I still had to work hard because I had to do all the grocery buying and all that sort of thing. And that was a job. That was a big job.
yes.
Because I had to get in that little car of mine and go all the way across town and
Are you going to grocery markets, supermarkets, or
Finally
little
one came in.
sidewalk bazaars?
Supermarkets
Or
were not in when we got there.
not when we got there, but the
And
next
this was
year.
a mom and pop shop at every little
okay.
Which I
neighborhood.
love.
Or
I
produce
love those
markets,
little
yeah.
shops.
Here's a meat shop, here's a poultry shop, here's a fish shop, here's a bread shop.
Yeah,
Went before.
I still shopped in those little shops a
Yes.
great deal. I'd go to the supermarket and buy a tube of mayonnaise, let's see,
Yeah.
things like that.
But they made,
But not too many things did they have, but we actually went
they
there.
had ground beef.
1 aisle of spaghetti, 2 aisles of spaghetti, 3 aisles of spaghetti. And then they did have ground beef, and they would put in about 1/4 pound
It was what?
packages, yeah.
Dewey, Trey,
At the,
whatever the
yeah.
hell that is. It was about less than half a pound.
Well, about 1/4 of a
So if you wanna get some hamburgers, you got a whole stack of them. But this came in, and it's interesting because, of course, she was used to supermarkets. And then it opened up, well, she went out, got a cart, started something down the aisle. The Italians didn't know what to do. I know this one typical story, they were sitting there with this stuff and looking at it and smelling it. And what the hell was that? It was deodorant.
Yeah.
Of course, you only had to be there for a while to understand why they didn't know
Yeah,
about
right,
that.
yeah.
But,
Ride the bus wasn't surprising to realize
so
it.
Yeah.
she'd wheel around in her cart and come out with this great package of stuff, and all the Italians were, what the hell?
Well, I did buy the vegetables there, that, they were pretty fresh,
Mhm.
but I also bought it with little stands where, you know, they had there. in the
And their
middle.
bread was unusually good.
And the bread was good, and, with these little stands with the fresh vegetables. See, they'd only get so much in, and then when it was sold, it was gone. So
Mhm.
you had to get there early enough to buy the strawberries or whatever you wanted.
See, the Italian mode was that the maid or the housewife, usually the maid, would go in the morning early and buy whatever was gonna be for lunch, and go back in the afternoon and buy whatever was gonna be for supper.
Yeah.
Wasn't much refrigeration. We took a great big refrigerator over it. Nobody could believe it.
That was wonderful.
But the other thing she did, I thought to answer your question, she and another gal started making the tours of the art gallery,
Oh, yeah.
castles, things like that. Well, and you know, to take an artist to Florence, Italy's like walking a drunk in a bar.
Oh, but it
I
was,
mean, she was in seventh heaven.
and you still, in the 4 years, or almost 4 years we lived there were still some things I didn't see. I didn't get around to, or else I didn't repeat it.
Mhm.
Because it's always good if you see one museum, you go through it and then go back in
Yes.
another day or so and see it again.
Uh-huh.
And that's the only way you really can
Right.
absorb it and learn. So that took a lot of time.
What did you like the most and least about Italy?
Of course, I like the whole thing. The art, really,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, would stand out in my mind. And of course, the countryside and all the
Had you
little villages.
already been decided that art was one of your favorite preoccupations by that time?
Oh, yeah, long before that. My
Okay.
mother was a good artist.
Okay.
And she had taken art, so I realized that I would. And then the minute I got in that country, I just got absorbed with
She
it.
liked the food also, John.
Oh, food, oh God, of course. Who wouldn't? But
Mm-hmm.
it was a great place to live. At least that's the way I felt. It was a great place for the children, too. And they liked it. They were okay.
Uh-huh.
And
There were some setbacks. I mean,
there's always those.
some defense,
but
some
you've got
drawback.
Yeah.
You've got that here, too.
But you did trade-offs.
Sure.
You know, like they told us, don't bring a washer and dryer.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
The reason is the maid get down and scrub them with their hands. Well, Miss
That was
Sarah
the
not
worst
about
thing
to do
that
that.
anyone ever told me.
But,
You mean once you decided not to bring one, you couldn't have just ordered one?
Well, we ordered one over there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a little, just a little one.
little one for your undies.
We put a sheet in it, you
Oh.
know, and put 2 or 3 of his shirts in. We got by, but
Mm-hmm.
it was a shame we did not bring a washer and dryer.
Oh, we just got poor advice.
Yeah,
didn't we?
very poor.
And things were changing right then.
Mhm.
That was right after the war when the Italian bubble started to grow in 1960.
Mm-hmm.
Things were changing from the old style of living and the maid going out and doing the shopping and the maid scrubbing stuff out by hand and whatnot.
Yeah.
And here came some new washing machines and some kind of refrigerators and that kind of stuff. So
Made a
it-
big difference, and not only that, laundromats came. About the second year we were there, laundromats came. I thought, oh great, I'll go to the laundromat, I'll take everything to the laundromat. You couldn't get in the laundromat. And we, the very people who had told us not to bring the washer and dryer, and they were Americans, don't take the washer and dryer. They were the very people that couldn't believe that they also said, well, the laundromats are kaput because no one's gonna go to the laundromat. Well, you couldn't even get in the laundromat.
She wanted to set up a business,
Oh.
Yeah, when we got over there.
and to be a laundromat business, but the complications of doing business in Italy, no way. But the people who did, it came out like a tall dog.
They
Yeah.
came over. The first year they came over, they were nice enough people. And then the second year they were there, they walked in the restaurant and I said, Dick, look at that diamond on her. Look at the fur coat around her shoulders.
Oh, really?
Oh, it was a gold mine.
It was a real gold mine.
But I couldn't
But you
afford
would have had
it.
to go, you would have had to have a big company to sponsor.
Well, you'd have had to have an Italian company. But see, the plant that I built, the company we set up, was an Italian company.
Mhm.
Otherwise, if you were a branch of an American company, your tax rate would probably run about 115% of your profits. But by being an Italian company, and that got complicated, you had to have an Italian board of directors, of people not connected with your company, and the rules and regulations you had to follow, and if they could track any of your letters or stationery or comments that, the Italian branch of Eli Lilly Company, you're dead in the water.
But Lilly still owned a majority of that company you set up, or it had to be?
You had what they called joint ventures.
Yeah.
You put up $50, I put up $50, and we got $100 to do business with. Except when we get in an argument, I've got $51 for it. In other words, I'm gonna win all the arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little sub rosa, but that's the only way you can do the joint ventures there and in Japan and other places. Because the intentions are right from the local government standpoint. No way you're gonna get somebody like Lilly to say, well, we just put all this money in,
Yeah.
whoever's over there can have half of it.
Yeah.
First thing you know, there's none for Lilly and all.
Yep. There would be no investment and no plant and no employment.
Well, I think you're talking about the highlight. I think another thing was just to get in the car with the kids and go visit these little hill towns.
I see.
Just, we had a car and I would just put the kids in the car and another friend.
Mm-hmm.
And away we go to these little hill towns. And that was very interesting. And the things you'd see there, the crafts and things that they were making, and the marble and the things that were going on in these little hill towns was very interesting. We'd eat there.
Yeah.
There's always a nice restaurant.
Oh.
And I don't mean a fine restaurant.
Yeah,
I mean just a
just a
little
little cafe
hole
or
in the wall,
something.
but it was a good restaurant.
Mm-hmm. When did you begin painting?
Actually, after I got back home
Back home from
from
where?
Italy. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you didn't paint
I
before you went
painted
to?
some,
Okay.
not much, not like I
Right.
did when I got
You
back.
drew and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I painted, some, but not like I did when I got back here.
You painted some enough to know that you had some kind of knack or talent or ability
Or
to do
desire
it. Mm-hmm.
to do it, right.
Uh-huh.
And I had painted before.
Did you
off
take
and on.
lessons or try to learn
Yeah,
from in
Sure.
Italy
Oh,
though?
sure. No, I did not in Italy.
Okay.
No. Mm-mm.
But when you got back, you
Got back immediately and
taking
started
lessons.
taking lessons from good teachers and good artists.
What made you decide on watercolor as opposed to?
Well, I didn't. I really started out with oil.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we actually have an oil painting of yours, I think, in our house.
I started out with oil, and I just love. Now that's in the Chinese.
I mean, my
just
parents
love
do
the
not.
art. Yeah, I love the oil, and I still do, and I go back to it once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to the oil, but
Commercialism's in
and then I
watercolor.
started watercolor, and I loved it. I
Uh-huh.
loved it. it was quicker, it was fresh, you had to learn, you know, a lot about it, but you still, it was a wonderful.
Did you ever have goals or ambitions with respect to painting, or was it, did you always consider it to be a
Avocation.
a hobby
No.
or?
No, I think most people, I definitely had ambition
Mhm.
with it. I wanted to win prizes, which I did,
Uh-huh.
and have shows, and then after so many years and things, and I taught, of course, and,
Yeah.
after you got sick, and it sort of dwindled down to
Yes.
not worrying about all the goals and things that I'd like to have.
Right.
had.
Which relatives do you remember as a child, in general, from your mother's or your father's side? Any from Norway or?
Of course, from my father's side, there were none, as a child, for me.
Did your father had a brother that moved to the U.S. also, or?
I guess he'd been over here back before my father got married, and went
Okay,
back to
okay.
Norway.
Is that a brother?
Lars or something.
Larson?
We didn't know it, we'd heard about it. But he had this cousin, Alma Hershot or something, who was a nurse in Newark, and she'd come and spend Christmas with us.
Mm-hmm.
6 of us in that little house, and somebody had to sleep on the sofa so she could have a bed.
Yeah.
The one good thing about that was she would always bring a 5-pound box of chocolate. And in those Depression days, we hadn't seen ever seen a 5-pound box of chocolates.
Yeah.
But, so then the only other relatives were my grandfather and my aunt. I remember my grandmother. I was about 4 or 5 when we left Butler, came to Coatesville. Shortly after in Coatesville, she passed away. But I remember her as a very kindly person.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd had nothing but girls in their side of the family. All at once she came aboard, you know. So I was kind of the apple of her eye.
Yeah.
And she passed away then with my grandfather and Aunt Eleanor. And I'd rather not discuss my grandfather's relationship with me than mine.
Okay. All right. But Aunt Eleanor, I knew Aunt Eleanor. And
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, she was a character.
She was.
Was she? Did you find that she was a fun aunt when you were growing up, or did you get to
Well,
know her very well?
See, moving away at 5, the only time we saw her was in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
Our whole vacation would be to pack that car up, tie trunks on it and everything, and go clear across the
Yeah.
Pennsylvania mountains
Yeah.
in Butler, spend a week or about 2 weeks and come back. The only vacation we ever knew. We never went to shore, never anything like that. And at that time, she was kind of beholden to my grandfather, did his housekeeping
Oh,
and
yeah.
cleaning and that kind of stuff, and she wasn't very much fun.
Uh-huh.
Well, wasn't sourpuss, but she wasn't fun. But then after she got free, and we got to know her down the shore and places like that, she was a barrel of laughs.
You
Yeah.
know her? When did she go to shore?
She came down the shore.
Did she? I don't remember. But
Yeah.
doesn't
I
matter.
remember meeting her at your parents' place.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. She was, I like her.
What do you remember about how your mother and father grew up? The stories that they told you. You mentioned your father grew up raised by his sisters, and
We never heard much. He was a very reticent man. We never heard much from him, except that he would get up and ski down the hill 4 o'clock in the morning and build a fire in the schoolhouse so that when the kids got there, the building would be warm. That was his job.
as
Go
what,
back
a
up the-
teenager, or
Huh?
as a teenager, or
Evidently.
Well, he was going to school.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to school and did that
Mhm.
to help with the cost. But see, he was floating around almost like an orphan. Stay with this aunt for a while, that aunt for a while. Nobody seemed to want him. I think that's part of the attitude of why he left.
Yes.
But he never had an awful lot to say about upbringing or his schooling. He served his military while he was in engineering school. And there just wasn't an awful lot to tell. Of course, with my mother, there was everything to tell.
Yes.
You know.
She had a happy life with Sara, didn't she?
Well, yeah, see, my grandfather had oil. And he took her out of school.
In Western Pennsylvania.
Took her out of school in at the start of her 9th grade and had private tutoring for 4 years in order to pass the entrance exam at Bryn Mawr. But you couldn't come out of high schools the way they were then and go into Bryn Mawr. You had to have private tutors, so she got that. She went on to Bryn Mawr and got a degree. Now, my sister Kitty and I are in disagreement. She says she went ahead and got her master's at Bryn Mawr. I vividly remember her telling me that she got her master's degree at Pitt in geology.
Uh-huh.
But she would talk about the East Coast colleges and football games. She knew a lot about football. She was interested. See, my father never was interested.
Mm-hmm.
I played 9 years of high school and college ball. He came to one game.
Yeah.
When our school came up to play Albright at Reading,
Mm-hmm.
family came over to see me, and he saw me play in one game, and that extended it a whole 9 years.
Yeah.
He didn't understand what it was. He didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
But it was tight.
Yeah, you have to understand. And they're not from this country, and it has never been on their agenda, their
Yes.
minds.
And you know, it was this.
It's a shame.
I'm the head of this house, and I've just said thus and so.
Uh-huh.
End of discussion. Of course, he was 6'2", about 225 pounds. Even look at him once in a while, I would, I don't think I want to mess with him. But
So
he's very dogmatic, too.
Did it come from the fact that all his life he had so many different people saying that kind of thing to him, probably?
I don't know. I got a hunch
Could be.
it's the way the family over there lived.
Uh-huh.
See, his brother Andreas, who was the father of Andreas Eubank,
Okay.
got the farm and everything, and he ruled with a very, very hard iron hand.
Andreas did.
Andreas'
The
father,
Yeah.
my uncle Andreas.
Did the Uncle Andreas and your father live together at the same house, or were they split up?
John, I
Andreas
don't know
remembered.
the answer. I think there had to be some time there.
Yeah, because Andreas said he remembered your father. But he was much younger than your father.
Which Andre? The senior and Andreas?
No, his father, the older one.
Older one.
Not older one, but.
Andreas, the young second Andreas,
Okay.
who was see, Andreas was my uncle, so his kid would be my.
Well, I'm thinking about the first one that owned all the property and
That's
everything.
Andreas.
Yeah, that's what that.
That was my father's older brother. And he got the farm and everything, and the only obligation he had was to see that the men could make a living, that they'd get some kind of training to make a decent living.
Mhm.
And once that was over with, if the girls couldn't get married, they stayed on as cheap help around the farm.
Mm.
That was their philosophy. And I think this also contributed to the fact that here my father was low man on a totem pole with about 10 or 12 kids. And there was his brother up there running the show like a Caesar.
Yeah.
But he had that characteristic, but I think it really came from the nationality. I think that's the way Norwegians work.
You're right.
You know, that I'm the head of the house and I run the show, and I don't want any argument from anybody
Uh-huh.
about how I'm running the show. When I tell you to do this, you do it. And my mother used to get around it, but I said, yes, I understand, and she'd wiggle around and do whatever she wanted to do.
Yeah.
We weren't that smart.
Mm-hmm. Did your mother have other sisters and brothers besides Eleanor?
Yes, she had a sister, what was her name? Who died in a flu epidemic.
When was that?
She was a
1918.
teenager. Was she a teenager?
She was pretty young. What the heck was her name? Can't remember.
I've heard it so many times.
Maybe your dad or Aunt Kitty.
Mhm.
But they did have three in the family. There was one died and just elder.
Okay. Right. Do you know, did your mother tell you the kinds of things that they did as children, what they did for fun, or what their life was? She used to indicate that she had a pretty happy life growing up, or?
Yeah, no, she didn't tell us much what they did.
Mm-hmm.
You see, the old man got this money, his grandfather.
He got it, or he,
No, they found oil on his property.
oh, that's right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so he started going up to Chautauqua, which is up on Lake
In the summers.
Erie,
Uh-huh.
and a big, big place
Are
where,
you comfortable?
no,
With that pillow back of you there?
that's all right.
Okay.
We can take a break or sit in another chair or anything.
I think this Chautauqua was where people went when it got real hot.
Mm-hmm.
The rich people.
Yeah, the rich people.
Yeah.
And in the winter time when it got cold, they got on a Pullman car. It was half a car devoted to that family, and they went to Florida. See, my mother was born in St. Augustine, Florida,
Oh, I see.
while they were down there. So the old boy, went down to Florida, up to Chautauqua. He was Mr. Big because he had this money poured in. Have you ever been in Butler?
No.
He bought a house down in a good section of town, 3-story house.
Probably not there now.
Huh?
I bet it's not there.
No, it's not last time I was there. But, I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, we can go on to another subject.
No, but I mean, just
Oh, it's
to
not
answer
important.
your question about what she did, I really don't recall her saying much of what she did as a child in
Mhm.
the way of fun and games and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
Although she seemed to have
I
a
think they probably just.
pretty rounded knowledge of a lot of things that surprised me from time to time.
Okay. We are actually near, let me check this, we're near the end of this tape. Probably only about 5 more minutes or so. And
Is this essentially what you wanted to get?
yes, oh yeah, very much so. Absolutely. I got through the questions that I had for the more general purpose questions. That, the last time I visited here, you and I probably sat for 4 or 5 hours into the evening, the evening I got here, and I don't remember what we talked about, but there were a lot of different subjects that we covered. I'm going to try to find if there's any other little detail kinds of questions that might apply. Did you ever take time looking into further ancestry back than your grandparents, like where they? I know that your mother has a long lineage.
Yeah, the last present my mother gave me was a fancy genealogy
Right.
paper. Takes
Oh.
us back to President McKinley and all that good stuff.
Oh, okay.
And,
You would, eh?
no, yeah.
Oh, really?
And then when we,
Okay.
yeah. Then when we went to Norway, at the farm there, they had a log that went back to 1400 and something, tracing the steps of
Oh,
this
yeah.
family. And the interesting thing to me was that they changed the name just about every time you turned around.
Mhm.
The name Todderud doesn't exist in Norway today. I think
Mhm.
you found that out when
Yes.
and it's Andreas we're talking about. The farm was a little small. The Todderud farm was small. And they went and bought Nordbryn, which is
Nordbryn,
North
mhm.
Bar.
Uh-huh.
And he liked that farm, he liked that name, and so he just changed the family name to Nordbryn. Andreas' name was Nordbryn, everybody else would go with Nordbryn. When we went over for the first time, this Paul, who's my cousin, who would be Andreas' son.
Son, yeah.
He now
He's
has,
the one that inherited, this is what I'm trying to say.
he's
Isn't
the,
he
he's the one that's got the farm.
Farm,
Well,
yeah.
his father got the farm. And, he said through interpreters, I'm glad you came here because now you can tell me how to pronounce the name. I said, I came over here to find out how to pronounce it. He said, it doesn't exist here. You know, we didn't quite understand that, but then when you look through your internet and every place else, and you never found a thing except when some mental hospital bought a piece of the old Todderud farm, and the only time
It's
the
on
name
the
appeared
building.
anywhere.
Todderud.
I don't know that I ever heard the follow-up on that story. When I checked the internet for the name, it was on a document that was written in Norwegian, and I printed it out and gave it to Mom and Dad.
Well, we got it translated.
Okay?
Mhm.
And the document was that this had been this was a literally mental hospital.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And this was the story of the mental hospital and how they'd set it up for syphilitics and whatnot. And then that had been wiped out, and they came along and had it for something else. And the story that he sent was about that hospital. The fact that at a certain point in time they had to expand,
Mm-hmm.
so they bought so many acres or so much land from the old Todderud farm. That's the only place the names ever appeared.
Oh.
Yeah, right.
When you were young, you were regular church goers, belonged to the Presbyterian church, right?
Mhm.
And that was a big part of your lives?
This
Yeah,
one.
still is.
Yes. Did that come from your mother as much as your father? Or one from
John, I was thinking this morning about that. If you look at my brother and my two sisters, every one of them is very faithful in church attendance.
So,
And I think that must have come from the fact that they drag us into church every Sunday, whether we wanted to go or not.
But you know, the funny thing about it, many people don't go, then if they've been drugged to church every Sunday, they don't go afterwards, for some reason.
But I can remember, John, when I started to play football. And my father was hard of hearing, so he had a pew down about 4 rows from the pulpit. He'd go to men's Sunday school. My mother would get dinner ready, and we'd come down, and I guess we went to Sunday school too, and then we'd go into church. And here I come striding down the aisle, a great big football player, you know, self-conscious figure, everybody's looking at me, and they was especially weren't. But I resented that. I said something to my mother at one time. She said, forget it. He's hard of hearing, that's where he wants to sit, and that's where the family will sit. Every Sunday.
yeah.
And we did.
We sat on the second or third row in the Methodist church when I grew up.
Yeah.
But I can remember that here I was, you know, same way with Boy Scouts. I was pumping through the chairs. I was a life.
Mm-hmm.
I had about 7 or 8 merit badges to go to get Eagle. And I started going to the Friday night scout meetings in my civilian clothes. And the scoutmaster we had was a very severe type of person. You wear your scout uniform. Well, to wear my scout uniform and walk to the church, I walked past the YMCA where all the football players and everybody else were hanging out. And here I'm going to come by my little flat hat and not me. So I just didn't know that. He kept pressing me. And the one thing you could duck under during depression was, you know, I said, well, I've outgrown my uniform, and it was pretty hard to come by money for another uniform. Then this jerk went to my father